What it is, y'all, it's your old Professor Pilk, and if this is your first time, make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button, because today we're going to be talking about your first steps in DanChro. Now, we've had this game for a little over a year and a half. We just are on the back of the year and a half anniversary, and so a lot of our first step guides and things like that when the game first dropped are no longer even remotely relevant. So we want to talk about the first things that you want to do when you get into this game. And I think number one, and probably most importantly, is going to be talking about the gacha. And because you're going to open up with a gacha that is going to allow you to summon some units. And in the past, the recommendations that we made and the tier list that we made are 100% irrelevant in today's standards. So this is the gacha that you're going to get, and I mean, for all intents and purposes, and you're going to get basically a way to reroll this until you get a good unit. Now, I will tell you from experience, this Firebell, he ain't the best, but the nice part about him is you can kind of get him for free through some of the starter missions. I think those are still available. If not, he drops off at enough. I wouldn't worry too much about him. You will start off with an SR Bell, but you want to pull on this banner until you get one of a handful of units. Now, I will tell you right away, you can make your life really easy by basically rerolling on this banner until you get at least one assist you are and one adventurer you are. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I guess that's a 101, so let's explain real quick. So inside DanChro, there's basically like two different types of units with some accessories. So number one, we have adventurers. Adventurers are the actual unit that you're going to use to go out there in the world and to, fight monsters or fight other players or whatever you're going to do. These are the mainline unit. These are your I don't want to call them a DPS, but essentially these are the workhorse of your team. These are where you want to put your primary focus. You need good adventurers in order to be able to go out there in the world. And not all adventurers are basically seen as equals. There's 4 different classes of adventurer, and if we go here to sort and filter, I can kind of explain it a little better. So up here, if we go to filter, we can filter this down by attack roll. Attack roll is literally what it sounds like. These are units that are used as attackers. They do damage. Now, some might be a little more squishy than the others, looking at you, New Ottarl. But by and large, these are units that just produce the most amount of damage. When you're first starting out, attackers are a great way to begin. Now, you may not be super competitive in like PvP and stuff like that, but that will come with time. This is going to probably get you the most bang for your buck in a lot of the events that are out there right now. A good attacker is, going to be the workhorse of the vast majority of your teams. You also have, if we go back up here into the filter, if my game will stop freaking out, go over here to filter and we'll go to defense roll because it's the next one on the list. Defense roll is kind of what it is. It is a tank. Now, if you want my honest opinion, currently in the gacha, when you are re-rolling at the beginning, you can actually get this guy, and he is awesome. He's one of the older units at this point. He's been around for about a year. He was not an initial drop, so we did not talk about him in the initial reroll guide, and we'll cover a little bit more in that reroll guide. But if you're able to get him, even though he did say get an attacker as a defense unit, he is a rare commodity because he will tank just about everything, and you will see him used still to this day in PvP, in just about every aspect of the game. The problem is he doesn't produce a huge amount of damage. That strength number is kind of low. But at the same rate, for the amount of damage he isn't able to produce, he makes up for in just raw bulk. This dude is awesome and a great first pick for your team. But moving on to the other, they're basically tanks. It's kind of self-explanatory. Now we get to speed units. And speed units are a little bit interesting. I think this is one of the least understood classes in the game. Speed units really are kind of designed... The best way I can describe it is they are the unit you use when you really want to get, when you want to kind of build other units a little bit faster. So speed units are kind of designed so that they are able to accumulate skill points and things like that, so other unit skills go off significantly quicker. A great example of this is this Speed Ryu. Now, it'll make a little bit more sense as you get further into the game, but just understand I'm kind of explaining them like a support, but they're not a support role. They are their own distinct role. They're not particularly strong. They don't hit particularly hard, but they are literally quick. And there are some versions of the game where, looking at like Magic Stone Scramble and things like that, where you will need a unit that is specifically just fast. And that is what they do. Plus, a lot of them have skills that will allow them to kind of buff up other players not even buff them up, just kind of make their skills accumulate faster. So whenever we go into their actual skill details here, you will see that they have a normal attack, a technique 1, a technique 2, and a special move, or what most people call an ultimate attack. So technique 1 and technique 2 basically have a cooldown period, and most speed units are kind of designed to make that cooldown period occur a little bit faster. So it says cooldown 400. That would, let's say for the sake of argument, that's 400 seconds. Well, a speed unit can knock that down to 200 or 300, depending on, it's not exactly 400 seconds. It doesn't matter. But they can help accumulate these skills faster. It's essentially what speed units do. So technique 1 is, a certain hit that does a certain number of things. For each unit, this can be a little bit different. Technique 2, same basic idea, little stronger hit, because you can see here, cooldown is 800, and attack multiplier is... She didn't even have an attack multiplier. She's just raw support in that role. This one down here is cooldown 400, attack multiplier 139. For the sake of argument, like an attacker, you'd see an attack multiplier of like 2 to 400 here. Then we get up to their alt, and her alt is 600%, and you can see numbers in like the thousands of percentages. So that's what speeds do. They just get these techniques a little bit faster, and a lot of them will actually buff these for your attacker too. There's a lot to discuss there. Speed units are just highly misunderstood. I wouldn't start with a speed unit. I would go after an attacker or an Ottarl. An Ottarl. Like, there's not but one you can get out of the original Gacha. But nevertheless, that is speed units. They're hard to describe, but they are very, very handy. However, when you're starting out the game, probably better to start with an attacker. Now, if we go back up here to filter, there is one more class of unit in the game, and that is support. Now, support does what support does. They're there to support the units. And when we kind of go to Haruhime, which is actually one of the better support units you can acquire in the game, at least early on in the game, she does exactly what she does in the anime. She will level boost your unit. She will give everybody a lot more power. She is a healer. She is absolutely fantastic. Getting her early is a great asset, but you don't want her as a DPS. She's good, but she would be like the second adventurer you pull in like a WR draw. You do not want her to be your only UR. You'll get there, but it's going to take you a while to get there. Supports don't do damage. They're not particularly fast. They're not particularly bulky. In fact, a lot are pretty squishy. But what they do is a lot of times healing, buffing different skills. In her case, the full-on level buff. They're very good. A great way to start, but I definitely would say if you get her on a WR draw. Do not get her as your only draw in the game. It's going to make things pretty difficult. And I'll do a draw here in a moment and kind of go back over that here. Now, going back to attackers, because I really do feel like that is really where you want to focus your time. Let's get rid of supports over here. There we go. So there are a handful of attackers that are really, really, really rock solid in the game, and most of them are the waitresses at the pub because they were just the last ones introduced to the game. So you've got this Chloe. She is really good. I really do like her. I just did a damage test with her. Well, an event run with her, and she's shocked me how good she actually is. Another really good one here is Lunar. Both of them have soloed events, and both of them have really proven their worth. Both of these units are absolutely stellar, and I would definitely make them top picks, S-tier picks, for my first draws in this game if I were to do those over again, if I were to reroll. Next one up is Anya. I think Anya is another fantastic first draw in the game. I think she is an indispensable asset, another unit that can solo a lot of events. Very, very, very good units. Those three are like my top pick for attackers that you can get out of your first draw. So I absolutely would make them my primary target doing those first draws. But they're definitely not the only ones. So when we're sitting here in defense, there's actually two really solid units that you could get in your first draw. Number one, we talked about Ottarl. Easily a top pick, easily an S tier. The rare exception that I would say I would 100% just get a copy of him, go to the game. You'll go very, very far. He's not the fastest unit in the game by any stretch of the imagination. He's definitely not the heaviest hitter. But as I said, there's a ton of people that still use him in PvP. A great tank. S tier all the way. And we'll redo this. We'll do a full deep dive on those first summons and all that you can do. And we'll do a full tier list on all these units a little bit later and talk about them in depth. But just kind of understand more or less that's kind of where I'm at. I also really like this Philvis. I think she's fantastic. A lot of people still use her. I don't really have any dupes in mind, though. She's not one that you pull very often. But another one that is in the general pool that I think doesn't get enough love, but definitely pulls her weight and pulls her weight well. But once again, I think with her, and I might get some arguments in the comments about this, I don't think she would be my one and only, whereas Ottarl definitely would. If you just pull a UR and you just pull Ottarl, it's fantastic. Walk away. With her, I'd almost wait and get like a double UR draw. Kind of like I said with Harahime. Maybe that's a hot take, but that's my take. I definitely put her high A tier. Maybe like A.5, but, or like, you know, like double A. But I don't know if I quite crank her up to S, because I don't know if she's really able to do it by herself the same way Ottarl can. I know she's good, I know she's capable, and I know she's fantastic, but if we're talking starting off the game and you want to start in like the best possible position, you wouldn't be unhappy, but maybe later on you might regret not going after like an attacker on top of it. Just personal opinion. Okay, so we got to talk speed. We've got to talk speed. Man, I'm going to say don't let your first unit be a speed unit. If worse comes to worse, and the only thing you can get is the UR Ryu, it's not the worst thing ever, but speed units are kind of rugged to start off with. They're not the best, and they definitely are going to leave you wanting a lot more, and they might leave you more frustrated than satisfied. So my honest opinion is I would put her in like the B tier class, but I wouldn't start with a speed, personal opinion. That's me. And of course, we've got to talk support. And of all these units in the general pool, I think the only support unit that actually is worth getting on your initial draw, and once again would be as like the second unit in a double UR draw, would be Harahime. I think she's good. She's fantastic. She absolutely will hold her... Well, she'll make her presence known on a team. But I don't think solo she's really going to pull it out. I don't know why it flip-flopped there. Actually, I do know why. I'm pulling the controller and I probably nicked it against my leg. Nevertheless, I think Harahime is fantastic. I think she's very good. I think she's going to be fun as the second unit on a two-party team, or even a three-party team with some SSRs and some SRs. But will she hold her own by herself? I just don't think so. For that reason, I would kind of put her like B tier level, but she's the only support that I'd even consider. And once again, as the second UR in a draw. So do bear that in mind. Now, there is also fire, wind, earth, electric, and water. Those are your general elements, and it really depends on who you're facing as to how you're going to go about it. But it's so early in the game, I wouldn't even worry about those matchups, because a lot of the early fights you're going to go into are going to give you more Sealess where you can summon more units, and new units are dropping all the time. And honestly, you're probably going to more go after time limiteds, and you're going to pick up more of the general pool gacha or general pool URs as you're doing those other gachas. So I wouldn't worry too much about those elements. They're not as important in the early factor of the game, just because you are up against so many different things, and a lot of it depends on whatever the current event is. So, we didn't talk about SSR, SR, and UR, but I think those are kind of self-explanatory. URs are your top tier units. Those are the ones you really want to aim for. There is another level called Festa, but those are super time limited. They only drop a few times a year. Those you'll become accustomed to as time goes on. Just know SR, SSR, and UR. UR is top dog. SR is the weakest, and SR is kind of where you start out, and it's going to be a bit rough going at the beginning. That's why I would really recommend getting at least one, if not two URs from the start. Now, let's talk about the assists. So I'll be completely honest with you. I'll be totally transparent on this one. When it comes to assists, getting an assist as a UR draw on the first draw is lucky if it's the second UR. You do not want an assist alone. You definitely want to focus on getting an adventurer first and getting an assist secondary. I did say Haruhime is secondary, and I kind of put them sort of in the same realm. So when you're building a team here, let's actually go to one of the teams. So when you're building a team here, you'll have your adventurer and your assist on this side. So your adventurer is on the left, the assist is on the right. And what the assist does is it basically, they will add some stats to whatever that unit is. So I was talking about the Green Ottarl. I use him a lot. I like him. It's a fantastic unit all the way around. So in his case, he's got a high HP, but very low strength. Int is basically your magic stat. Vitality is essentially kind of like your endurance stat, and Dex is kind of your speed stat. Notice he's very slow, but he's got a lot of endurance. The dude is an absolute tank. Not a bruiser, a tank. Completely. And that's entirely what he's designed to be. So what we want to do is we want to give him an assist that's going to complement that. So in this situation, I've given him this Freya assist. There are better assists out there for him. Yes, I am aware. But this is the assist I chose to go with for him. Notice she's giving him a little bit of strength. She's giving him a lot of int. She's actually a little bit better on magic units. But, she'll work here. She does a decent job. Gives him almost 5,000 HP, like a good number of HP. Dex, a little bit of vitality. But the numbers here are going to be obviously way lower than they are in Adventure, because she's just meant to aid. She's not meant to be a crutch. She's just an aid. So, she assists have skills as well, and her assist skill, her main one, the one you can actually activate when you're in the battle, is, in her case, an attack multiplier of 200%, which basically means, she's going to do a hit, and she's going to hit for 200% of whatever the numbers are. You can do it every 50 seconds. It says cooldown 50 seconds, and it's one hit front-facing AoE attack. So, in other words, it's one hit. She's only going to strike once directly in front of you, and it'll hit all the foes basically in whatever range she's going to do. So I think in her case, it's like a semicircle. Here's the interesting part, and here's the reason I like her. Pulls enemies in closer range. So in other words, with a tank, you pull everybody in closer range, and you just spin your sword around and you wipe them out. She grants 15 seconds of reduced earth damage, 20%, so earth units just do a lot less damage. And a percent recovery of max HP. It's weird. It's translated from Japanese. Basically 40% more HP back to your unit. So in the case of a tank, there are better assists for him, but it's the one I choose to use because she also has passive skills. And number one is a 27.6% increase in stamina. And actually, that's going to get better as you level these up. I have a whole tutorial on that. Just understand that basically that can level up and get better. So if I maxed her out, she'd be at 30%. I do not know why she's not maxed out, but we'll fix that later on. I really don't know why she's not maxed out. It's now going to drive me crazy. It is what it is. So 30% stamina increase, and that's just going to help him be a better tank. Down here, 10% damage reduction to your unit, so he's going to take 10% less damage, and if that were maxed out, it'd be 11.2%, so that's nice. And then finally, a strength increase, which if I was maxed out, which it should be, Grumble, grumble. I need to go fix that. 50% strength increase. He's not an attacker, but he's also not a magic unit, so having his strength increase will help him a little bit. It's not an exponential help, but it is a little bit of a help. So that's kind of what assists do. They literally assist your unit. That is what it is. And finally, when you're building a team, there's two other things you got to pay attention to, and they both get really intense, so I'll just kind of give you the base level on these. And that is scene cards. Now, on this unit, I have a couple of scene cards, and you will see that they give a certain number of stats over here. In this case, the stats in blue are the ones that are improved. So strength is up, and dex is up. Not the best option for him, but what the scene card does in skill definitely makes it worthwhile. I would honestly probably give him one that gives him more endurance if I was worried about that. But in this case, I actually want more damage for this particular event that I'm running. So the strength increase is nice. And if we go over here to skill info, it'll give us 2 skills up top. Okay. Now it says activated when an adventurer possesses the wind attribute. So we talked earlier about the, fire, wind, earth, all that good stuff. The green units are wind units. And so when it's a wind unit, they will get 24% strength in battle. So it basically means, remember, he's like a little behind damage-wise. In this particular battle, I'd like to have him be a little bit harder hitting. Even though that's not his job, a little bit will go a long way here. Because it's hard to explain, but in Magic Stone Scramble, essentially at the end, I want this dude to just kind of be able to fend off foes. He's like my last-minute unit, so to speak. You also see down here that there is a secondary skill. It's activated when the adventurer has the wind attribute, so it'll only work on green units. If you put this on a red unit or a yellow unit, it's not going to work. It'll only work on greens. And it'll get 20% more strength. So essentially, I'd say 44% strength boost right there. So very nice. So you can do up to 3 scene cards per unit. And there are also battle items. Now, each battle item does something a little bit different, just like the scene cards. And you just do kind of mix and match the different things that are kind of present in all these these units. So basic info on this particular one, it gives him a ton of HP and a ton of dex. Once again, not a great combo, but the HP is really good. If we go down here, so when you see the, like if I could click on this little lantern, you'll see it has the green element. This increases strength and int. Not a great combo. Let's see. This one does all stats. That's actually quite nice. But notice how much higher my HP is up there. I think I'm going to stick with the one that's got the higher HP. So you can go around here and mess around with different things. This one particularly does HP and int. So once again, not a great fit. This one, obviously being a shield, you can guess what it's capable of. But it does an int boost. It does a great vitality boost and a dex boost. But I think, once again, we've got better options on the table. Now, look at that HP versus the HP up here. This gives just a stupid amount of HP. So we're going to kind of stick with that. I kind of jumped the gun there for a moment. Now, I'm going to go to characteristics last because on this item, it's particularly embarrassing. But we're going to go to skill info. And each one's going to have basically a stat boost and a particular thing it does, just like the scene card. It says apply a 100% increased technique gauge accumulation rate to your unit for 5 seconds. Basically what that means, remember we talked before about the skills and the alts. This is essentially going to make my skills and my alts, specifically my techniques, my skills are going to accrue faster. So as I said, as you go and fight, all those skills basically have a gauge. They take time to build up. As you do damage, they build up. This is going to make that happen a lot faster. It says it's got 2 uses, so I could do that 2 times. It only lasts for 5 seconds, but we still get these really awesome stat boosts, which I think are really nice. Now, and then this one down here says your unit support technique, apply 10% shield to your unit for 8 seconds. Very self-explanatory. Apply 10% magic increase for 15 seconds. Obviously not really worthwhile for him, but the shield wouldn't be bad. The shield is basically just extra HP and extra defense that go on top of your current HP and defense. And 20% increased normal attack damage, which means anybody just doing normal attacks, meaning not techniques, not skills, not alts, just normal everyday attacks, get a 20% boost. That's actually handy. But only one use. I'm going to stick with that for my build, particularly. Now, characteristics. This is where I'm about to get roasted in the comments. Let's actually go in here because it's easier to see the characteristics in here. So characteristics are basically more stats that you can kind of accrue on top of everything else. So in this case, we have here a 6% strength increase to our unit, 2% dexterity increase, and when our unit is on the Freya Familia, this is kind of like his special thing, and every particular item has a different special skill. And this one, when they're a Freya Familia unit, 9% increase special move damage to your unit, so we'll get another 9% on top of everything else. Everything does kind of stack, and you want to pay attention to these stacks. Now, the nice part about battle items is you can actually remake them, or you can craft them and get better stats. So, I've got 8 more of the belts. I can either do all this up here, or I can hit auto-select and it'll select all 8 that are available. And let's hit remake and see if we get some better stats. Let's see what happens here. Remake complete. All right, so obviously bronze not great, silver's okay, gold is good, rainbow is better. Rainbow is the best. But I really kind of want to keep this skill here. I want to keep that Freya Familia skill. So I'm looking for a rainbow attribute on the Freya Familia skill, and right out of the gate, I don't see that. Now, if I go down here, the Witch's Hat is obviously a magic boost. I keep my strength boost. I get an endurance boost, which I really want. But I get a magic boost over the Freya Familia boost. I think I want to keep the Freya Familia boost. Let's go down here again. And in this one, we get a really good strength boost, 2 endurance boosts, but we lose the Freya Familia boost. Here's the deal, guys. Obviously, I want to recraft this. But this is a rock and a hard place situation. I want that strength stat. I want that strength stat. And it's going to be an unpopular choice, but I am going to select that. Now, if you want to see all the characteristics that are up for grabs, go up here to characteristic, and everything is planned out there at the top. Actually, it looks like there's another one there. Activated when adventurer possesses the evidence of supremacy. Ottarl, when in battle, increase action skill damage. Ooh. So we just actually got 2 special traits there at the top. So I'd love to get one of each of those. Full disclosure, the reason I went with the strength boost is there are locks. And you technically can lock this down, and then that stat can never change. However, the locks are behind a paywall. So many of you watching this will never be able to take advantage of that. We're kind of at information overload level, but this is all the basic stuff. This is kind of how you run the game, and I hope it makes sense. And if it is information overload, I do apologize. But this is the very, very early stuff that you need to know that's very important. So to round this all up, in this particular gacha, and we're going to do a draw here in a moment, you can actually get scene cards, adventurers, and assists. If you want my opinion, stick to adventurers and then assists. Scene cards happen all the time. Scene cards just drop. We get free to play scene cards. I wouldn't worry about them in the first draw. And there's a way you can tell the difference here. So let's go ahead and do a draw real quick and see what happens. I happen to have some tickets, so we can do one here. It is taking its sweet time loading up. Oh, great. So we got fire and we got the red minotaur. So we are going to get a UR in here somewhere. So whenever you see fire, whenever you see the red minotaur, that guarantees a UR. Now, it could be a scene card, assist, or adventurer. If you have the little runes from the Hestia sword pop up at the bottom, that's guaranteed to be an assist or an adventurer. Let's go ahead and hit draw. Now, there is a secondary animation that can play there, where Eyes comes in and helps out Bell. If you get that animation, you're getting whatever the mainline unit is on this banner. In this case, I think it's actually the Red Bell, so if we get it, it's a bad thing, because he's already long since maxed out. But nevertheless, so we got an SR Welf. Not super exciting, but it is what it is. Got an SSR Welf. Once again, we're going to keep going. We're really looking for URs. So when you see an animation like this, that is a scene card. So Pumpkin Knight, which actually I do need more dupes of, so I'm actually glad I pulled that. That is a great draw for me, but not necessarily what you were looking for in a first draw. But when you see that animation, when you see that play, that is a scene card. If it pops up kind of all black and it goes all sparkly, that's an adventurer. And if it goes white and pops up, that is an assist. You could go watch the summon videos on this channel and you'll see tons of examples of how all that works. But you really want to see that black screen with the sparkles, and then whatever character you get there, that is an adventurer. So I would re-roll until you get those adventurers we talked about, and I'll drop a full tier list coming up very soon. Let's see, another SR Welf. Why are we getting SR Welf? Okay, Hestia. Mikoto. It's very hard in the SRs and the SSRs to tell who's an adventurer and who's an assist. But you'll just get accustomed to the idea of just drawing these units. Another Haruhime. It is favoring these units hard. Okay. SSR Miat. Alright, so all we got was the one scene card. So you're really looking for UR. So when you do your initial draw, you actually can go in and you can re-roll indefinitely. So I would re-roll until you got one of those units that I mentioned earlier in the video. So make a mental note of that. Good luck to you. And let me know what else you guys need here in the video. We'll talk a lot more about this stuff coming up. But for now, like, share, comment, and all that. And yeah, hope to see you guys again real soon. And I apologize if it was information overload, but there's a bit to discuss in this topic.